Welcome, I'm Ryan from Blue Gaming, and it is that time again. Siege has released new operators, so I'm making a video talking about them and whether or not they are worth it to buy if you do not have the season pass. Previously, I would go through and pick apart every single piece of them and talk about just things that you really didn't need to know. So I'm going to streamline this video and just talk about the important parts of each character and whether or not they may work for your specific playstyle. So let's get started with the attacker, which is Maverick. He is a 3-speed, 1-armor, pure fragger that is heavily enabled by his special ability, the Breaching Torch. And this Breaching Torch can go through anything, including reinforced walls and reinforced hatches, and it does it completely silently, with the only major drawback being that it can't create very large holes. But its main design is to use the enemy's reinforced walls against them to create your own personal kill holes, so not being able to cut big holes isn't really that much of a problem. Now let's talk about Maverick's two equally viable primary weapons. They are the AR-15.50 and the M4. Let's go over the AR-1550 first. Though it looks like a standard assault rifle, the AR-1550 is actually a DMR, and a pretty impressive one at that. It can use all the standard attachments that a DMR can use, and does 62 damage a shot while unsuppressed, and 52 damage a shot while suppressed, so incredible damage. The downside though is that its magazine is only a 10+1 magazine, so you don't have as many shots, but each of these hit very, very hard. The other weapon that Maverick can choose from is the M4, which is your standard assault rifle. In fact, the weapon that it is closest to is Ash's R4C. It has the same attachments as all your standard assault rifles, but actually does a bit more damage at 44 per shot while unsuppressed and 37 while suppressed, which makes it one of the harder hitting assault rifles. It also has a slower rate of fire than Ash's R4C by about 100 rounds per minute. It has a fire rate of 750, while Ash's has 860. So yeah, just a little bit of change. It does have the 30+1 magazine, so the exact same there. In my use, I have found that it feels like it has just slightly more recoil than Ash's R4C, but besides that, the two weapons are very similar, and so if you're good with Ash's gun, then you're going to be very good with this one as well. And as for Maverick's secondary weapon, it is a new version of the 1911 called the 1911 TAC Ops, and the only thing notable about this is that it has a bit increased damage over some of the other pistols. It does 55 damage while unsuppressed and 46 while suppressed, but still has the 8+1 magazine size that the other 1911s in-game have, and it has about the same recoil. Maverick also has a choice between claymores and stun grenades, so you get to choose that for his gadget. And that is pretty much everything for Maverick's loadout. Now let's go into my personal thoughts on him. And for this guy, my thoughts are very, very simple. From the beginning, when he was first announced, I saw that he was very similar to Ash, and so if you already like playing as Ash, then I think that there's no reason not to try out Maverick, because in many circumstances, Maverick is actually better than Ash for dealing with reinforced walls and being able to create his own sight lines, which is something that Ash can do, but not as much, as her gadget requires the wall to be unreinforced to be able to do all the stuff that you need, and things like opening up hatches and just all the other things that Ash can do, Maverick can also do. The only big downside that Maverick has is that he can't open up large walls like Ash can. Her gadget is great at opening up large holes in unreinforced walls, and Maverick simply just can't do that. And now let's move on to the new defender, Clash. She is a 3 armor, 1 speed, and she is the first shield defender that we have in Siege. And I have to say, when I first heard about her, I didn't think that she was going to be all that great. But I have come to find that I absolutely love playing as Clash. Clash is like my favorite defender to play as right now. Granted, she isn't really big on getting the kills, but she is potentially the best support defense character that we have in Siege right now. So let's go over her kit and then I'll give my thoughts on her. Let's start off by talking about the one thing that makes Clash so special. Her shield. Now, the closest to any other shield in the game is Monty's shield. When Clash has her shield out, it is always fully extended. So that means she cannot use any other pistol or any gun while her shield is out. But she does have a taser on it. And this taser is also something very special. It has a range of 12 meters, which doesn't sound like much, but when you're inside, 12 meters is actually quite a bit. And when you shoot this taser, it's actually more of an on-off switch than it is firing out a projectile. She can have the taser on for up to 5 seconds, and then it has to fully recharge, or if she doesn't use the full 5 seconds, then it will start recharging a bit faster, and it actually recharges 20% per second. So you can have it on for the full 5 seconds, and then it will take a full 5 seconds to recharge. Or if you only use 2 seconds, then it will only take 2 seconds to recharge. It's really simple like that. But let's talk about what happens when you hit somebody with it. It actually does two things. The first one is the enemy takes a little bit of damage. It is just chip damage. It's only 3 damage per second, but over time that can actually add up for a little bit of damage. The other thing shocking an attacker does is it slows them down drastically. Now, I'm not talking just a little bit. I mean, think of walking through barbed wire, and then even slower than that. Now, it doesn't start out immediately like that. You actually have to hit the attacker for 1.5 seconds before they slow down all the way to that, but it's essentially as if the attacker was walking through super strength barbed wire that you're shooting out of your shield. It is absolutely insane, and it's a very good way to set up a teammate of yours going and shooting the attacker that you're slowing down. Although, do keep in mind that it doesn't slow down their aim. They can still aim everywhere around perfectly normal. They just can't move as quickly. Clash's shield is also see-through, so if you have a teammate looking over your shoulder, they can see right through the shield, and an attacker can also see right through the shield, so that plays just a little bit with the tactics. And her shield also has some counters. The most notable one is that if you run up to her and actually get up to Clash's shield and you melee it, it will knock it out of the way, similar to Blitz's shield, and you have a chance to shoot her. So the best counter is to actually run straight for Clash. You just better hope that she doesn't have a teammate nearby to come assist her. Now let's talk about Clash's secondaries. She actually has a choice between 2 secondaries. One of them is much better than the other one. So let's talk about the bad one first. It is the P10C pistol. And this is essentially, think Ella and Zophia's pistol, all the way down to the red dot. It uses almost the same red dot, but it is just a semi-automatic pistol, and so it kind of loses out against her other secondary, which is the SPS MG9 submachine gun. Now, the special thing about this is that it's only a 2-round burst, but it does have a red dot sight and can use some other attachments. It also doesn't deal that much damage. Unsuppressed, it does 30 damage per shot, and suppressed, it does 25, but that does mean that 2 bursts will down an enemy, and it has an incredible rate of fire of 980 rounds per minute, but you won't exactly get that, as you do have to spam the trigger to actually get that out. It does also have a relatively small magazine size of only 20+1. And remember, Clash cannot use her secondary while she has the shield out, so there's really no reason to use the handgun over this submachine gun. To end off her kit, she has a choice between 2 gadgets, that is 2 impact grenades or 2 barbed wires, and really it's just personal preference for those. So now let's talk about my personal thoughts on Clash. And like I said earlier, I absolutely love playing as Clash. Most of the footage that you're seeing in the background is of Clash plays, and you're seeing exactly how I play as Clash. They're mostly support. I don't get a lot of kills playing Clash, and that is absolutely fine with me. The most notable way that I usually get kills as Clash is if it comes down to being a 1v1. The easy way to win as Clash is to let the enemy, or try to bait the enemy into shooting you until they have to reload. Once they reload, you can switch to your secondary, which for me is the machine pistol, and burst the enemy down. The special thing about this is Clash switching from her shield to her secondary is potentially the quickest weapon swap in the game. I don't know if that is actually backed up by any numbers, but it definitely feels faster than any other weapon swap in the game, and so I definitely take that to my advantage. Granted, I can also just use the submachine gun to just shoot people, which I have done, but that's normally not what I do. And finally, to end off talking about Clash, the people that I recommend to pick up Clash are kind of the same people that like to play support and like heavier attackers. So people that like to play Monty, some of the more support people, just any support character. If you are fine with not having all the kills, Clash is very good. And if you like just screwing over the enemy, or just playing with the enemy, it's great to play as Clash. You'll see many times I just have a stare down with an attacker for a good 15, 30 seconds, sometimes even more, and I can completely block off doorways, completely block off entrances, and it is just a great time playing as Clash. And like I said, I think she might be the best support defender that we have right now. And that is all that I have to say about Maverick and Clash. And personally, I really, really like both of these characters. And these are both very strong characters. Although, I think that that's really been the theme of this year's seasons in Siege. If we go back and look, Operation Chimera had incredibly powerful operators that pretty much everybody unanimously says are slightly broken, sometimes a bit more than slightly. And then we had Operation Parabellum that gave us 2 very strong defenders. And then we have this, we have 2 very strong characters once again. So I'm really looking forward to the 4th season, which is coming out early next year, I believe, and I just can't wait to see what we get next, because this has been a strong year, potentially the strongest year of Siege so far, and that just makes me really optimistic for where we go. So that has been it for this. As always, I'm Riding from Blue to Gaming, and I'll see you guys in the next one.